Hey everybody, this is the opposite of tangible cow pee. Think about it. Congratulations, you've made it to part 3. So what I wanted to establish by the end of the last video was that if Matt Slick were to take his beliefs about God to their logical conclusion, Matt would be forced to concede that being logically consistent is not only a part of God's nature, but the nature of existence and all things that exist. What this means is God and anything he could possibly create are subject to and bound by the natural behavior of existence that logical absolutes refer to. This is exactly what a naturalist would maintain about logical absolutes, or should maintain anyway. So essentially Matt is the one borrowing from another worldview, not atheists. If Dillahunty had established this, or something like this, Matt's next trick wouldn't have worked. Matt kept pressuring Dillahunty to classify the nature of logical absolutes. If they aren't conceptual by nature and they aren't physical by nature, Matt argued, then you can't just say neither. You have to be able to give a positive account of what they are, not just a negative account of what they aren't. And Dillahunty fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker. He didn't agree with Matt, but he accepted Matt's hidden premise. He responded by arguing that it was perfectly fine not to know what the nature of logical absolutes are, just that they exist and their nature is neither physical nor conceptual. And he did his best to defend this, but by doing so, he unwittingly granted Matt Slick's false assumption that the statement A equals A is a reference to something that has a nature. It isn't. Before I elaborate on that, let me take a minute to clarify some things that really need to be clarified. One is that we have to make a distinction between logical absolutes, like A is A, which are statements, and then the way in which things that exist behave, which is what statements like A is A are about. To me, Dillahunty's biggest mistake throughout the whole conversation was to use the phrase logical absolutes when talking about the behavior of things or nature of things that logical absolutes, the statements, address. What a statement like A is A refers to is not a thing that has a nature. It refers to the nature of a thing. Do you see the difference there? I mean, this is huge. We're basically talking about the difference between a noun and a verb. Let's break it down. You take the logical absolute A is A. What is this logical absolute? What is it? It's a statement. It's a noun. It's a thing. What is the nature of this thing's existence? It's conceptual by nature. Statements are conceptual, right? Okay, good, fine. So that's settled. But that's so peripheral to the issue, it doesn't even really matter. What is this statement, A is A, saying about reality? It's describing the behavior of A. The nature of A. A is a generic placeholder for anything and everything. It doesn't matter. That's not the informative part of this statement. The informative part is the word is, which is a verb, a behavior. It's saying A behaves this way. A's nature is such and such. Saying that all things in existence share the behavior of being what they are is not to posit any extra entity that exists. No noun-like thing needs to exist in any way, shape, or form for that to be so. In fact, that's the whole point in dispute. Things consistently behave a certain way. Things have a nature. To say that an extra thing, with its own nature, needs to exist in order for everything else to behave a certain way is already a theistic assumption. That's important. I'm going to repeat that. To say that an extra thing, with its own nature, needs to exist in order for everything else to behave in a certain way, is already a theistic assumption. It's not only a theistic assumption, but it's self-refuting, which, now that I think of it, isn't all that rare for theistic assumptions, actually. Things have a nature. Things have a behavior. So if an extra thing needed to exist in order for everything else to behave a certain way, then how does that extra thing behave? And what additional extra thing needs to exist in order for the first extra thing to behave the way it does? And so on ad infinitum. You get into trouble like this when you talk about logical absolutes as if they represent a thing or a noun out there and start asking, what is the nature of that thing's existence? It doesn't have a nature because it is a nature. It's the nature of all things. including God. All things are what they are. All things are not what they are not. All things are not both themselves and not themselves simultaneously. This is their behavior. This is their nature. This is what logical absolutes refer to. I do think Matt Dillahunty was incredibly smart from what I saw, and he handled Matt Slick better than anybody I've seen so far. But Slick's argument is predicated upon a profound categorical error, and Dillahunty didn't catch it, and so he granted Matt's fallacy without knowing it. It might be easier to spot if you put it into different terms. Okay, watch this. All trees are either coniferous or deciduous. So what kind of tree is a pig? Pigs are not deciduous or coniferous trees. They're neither. Ah, so you're saying there's a third kind of tree. Well, what is it then? You can't just define it according to what it's not. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Pigs are just a kind of tree that is neither coniferous or deciduous. You can't just say that pigs are neither. What kind of tree are they? I don't know. All I know is that pigs are a third kind of tree that isn't coniferous and it isn't deciduous. How can you say what kind of tree a pig is not if you don't even know what kind of tree a pig is? And on, and on, and on, and on. The right answer is that a pig is not a deciduous tree, and it's not a coniferous tree, because a pig is not a tree. Tag is an argument entirely predicated upon calling pigs trees, whether its proponents like Matt Slick know it or not.